Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Perspective with Viv podcast. My name is Viv, and this is the show. So today's title is As Within, So Without with Laura Alyn. And I would like to welcome her onto the show. Laura, hi. How are you doing? How's everything going?
Hi, Viv. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Now, when you speak about the inner world, what does that encompass for you emotionally, spiritually, and energetically?
Yeah, I think all of those, and I would include like imagination, like anything that is inside that only you can experience. It's your own perspective, and that's what the inner world is. But the interesting thing is that our inner world is what comes out through our perspective. So it's kind of like we're always in a Where's Waldo kind of world where our eyes are only looking for what we believe. And so if we change our beliefs, or if we, like, they call them like limiting beliefs, if you get rid of them, then you start seeing these opportunities that you didn't see before.
That's such a good answer and the perfect way to start this episode. So, why do you believe our inner world holds so much power over how we experience life?
So I'm doing my PhD right now, and in the research that I've been looking at, so I looked at all different cultures, all different time periods to really understand how people understand themselves. And what it came down to was the soul, the spirit, the mind, and the body. And these are our four vertices of self. And by looking at these four different parts of ourselves, we're able to then grasp a bigger picture of ourselves. And those four are very inner world things. I mean, maybe the body is more outer world, but the others, like your mind, is what's inside. Your soul is the fire, like the light that's within. And then the spirit is more of like the energy, or like the essence, the vibes. So it starts from within, but then it emanates outward. And then the body is the only thing that's in the physical world. And so by more of them are in the inner than the outer. So that's why I think that we need to put more emphasis on the inner world so that we can then see the outer world differently.
Wonderful, thank you. And that is so interesting that you're doing a PhD and you're able to actually sit and explore all of these different worlds of self, which is so important. So, can you share practical methods for individuals to connect with their inner selves?
Yes. So the number one I would say is using your creativity, your imagination, because if we can't even imagine a better world, then how can we achieve it? And just like starting with yourself, like I think that today there's so many world problems that we think we're just one person. How can we do anything to change it? But when you think about your own life, like what do you want out of your own life? And then really work towards that, creating your own dreams, then it's like a ripple effect. Once you are working towards your dreams, then you can inspire other people. You can be a role model and say, like, this is actually possible. And so that's why I think that imagination is huge. So that would be like a number one place to start. The other one is now tying back into my research. So my PhD is in education, and so I'm really interested in, like, why do we learn? What's the purpose of learning? I don't think it's to get a job. I think it's something that is in the inner world. And by starting to become more curious and how education should have been from the beginning, it should be based on curiosity, not based on obedience. And by being curious about the world. So going to a park, wondering, why do the leaves look like this? Why are these bugs here? Things like that. Just starting small and seeing like what is interesting to you. That's a great first step.
Such a profound answer. And, there's so many layers to it that I appreciate you sharing. What are some of the most surprising ways you've seen the inner world affect the outer world, either in your life or your clients?
Great question. I would say with the limiting beliefs that we don't even begin to understand how many belief systems are in place that we're not aware of, and then not until we actually start diving deep into who we are, we start finding these beliefs like, whoa, I actually believed that that, for instance, for me, I love doing a bunch of different projects. I love putting my hand in everything. That's why I'm a polymath. So a polymath just means to love a little of everything. So they call them like jack of all trades. But then my mom told me one time that, oh, well, you never finish any project. And I guess that had stuck with me. And I didn't even realize that that was a limiting belief that I had had because my mom told me it. And then once I broke that, all of my projects were suddenly getting to completion. And so it's just something, it could be something silly like that, where somebody told you one day and you held on to and you adopted it. And now it's a sneaky inner belief. The great way to see this too is on the movie Inside Out 2, where Riley starts having these inner beliefs and they start putting anxiety into those inner beliefs, and then it changes her whole outer world. So I think that's like a great example in the movies.
That's so beautiful because I love when we have films that we can refer to give an insight into what it's like on the inside of us. When I first watched Inside Out, the first film, I saw all the emotions and I started to think about me as a person, what emotion is ruling things. And as a result, what limiting beliefs do I have tied to that emotion? So Inside Out 2, people did recommend watching it, especially because people saw Riley as a child. I believe she's a teenager now. And
Mhm.
from the trailer, there were new emotions that were introduced, like anxiety and envy. And that really does make an impact on how we are on the outside, which is why my next question is, in your experience, how does healing on the inside ripple outward into our relationships and environment?
Oh yes, in every aspect. I think that's what's so cool about healing is that when you heal one part of yourself, it actually impacts all the other parts. So if you heal something emotionally, it impacts your spirituality, your physicality, your um even financially, I would say, like, everything impacts everything else. And so that's why, like, my research has been really hard because I'm over here trying to, like, nitpick and, like, pull these things apart that are so confounded. Like, the everything is so interconnected. So even like figuring out the distinction between a soul and a spirit, where a lot of people would say it's the same thing, but they are so different. I think that healing one aspect of it, then everything else will inherently get better.
Very beautiful answer, extremely beautiful, because it's there's so many things to pick from this, but I would say this, for me as a person, when I was more of an angry person, it's like it manifested in relationships, in the way I related to people, in the way I saw things. But the time and the year when I achieved balance internally, it just seemed like everything outside changed to reflect that. So I do resonate when they talk about how the inner world determines your outer world, and by healing what is in the inner world in terms of your roots, deeply rooted thoughts about yourself, your identity, your childhood trauma, psychological pain, limiting beliefs, you can thoroughly change how you are perceived outside and how you relate with the outside world. Now, as a more balanced person, I'm able to see where my energy is aligned with people, with places, with groups, and where it isn't. And would you say, or I'm sure you'd agree, the more you tend to your inner world, the more you can develop your intuition. Please tell me more about what you think about that.
Ooh, yes, that's a great question. So, but just right before that, I wanted to mention that when you were talking about like getting angry, that there's this 17th century scholar. Her name is Anne Conway, and she said that the reason why there's war and fights and anger on the outside is because we are so angry and we're fighting with ourselves on the inside. And so a lot of that comes from, like, do I follow my heart? Do I follow my head? Do I follow my gut, my intuition? And so by following these different, or like fighting internally, then that's where this comes out. So then once there's peace on the inside, then we find peace on the outside, because these people that come into our lives, or these situations that occur that make us angry, they occur because there's this trigger, there's this wound that is still being triggered in order to be healed. It just wants to be healed. It doesn't want to be there. So that's why these things come up. So when following the intuition, I think that is the number one way to be able to overcome, because it's hard, like when you're angry and something happens, it's so hard to control your emotions. But when you follow your intuition, you know that everything that comes up in life is for a reason. So you might not be able to see it now, but everything's going to work out at the end. Today's a day about bringing up films because I just watched One of Them Days on Netflix, and it's about these two women who have one of the worst days that anybody could possibly have. But at the end, you see why they went through all of these hardships, because now their lives are so much better than it was at the beginning of the day. Even through all of these crazy things that happen, it was all meant to happen. And I think that it's just about following the intuition to allow God or spirit, however you see the source or like the higher power. We can't control everything as humans, but we have to trust that there's this energy that is leading us. There's an invisible string that is leading us to where we need to go, and that's the intuition.
Beautiful answer. Honestly, I resonate with everything you said, starting from anger. When we as a collective are fighting ourselves internally because we don't know ourselves, we think that we need to follow the logical path, we don't answer the call of our heart. We tend to see that exhibit itself outside through conflict, through disharmony, and through war, all of that. Because of that lack of understanding and deep insights that certain people are lacking. And then when we're talking about intuition, one thing I do love about intuition is that I see it as a sword. It's like signals. The more you tune in, the more the signal that you're reading off of an environment or a person is clear. And the more you follow your intuition and listen, the more your path unfolds, which is why I'm going to watch that film one of them days. I love films. So you saying they went through a really bad day and you could see that they went through all those hardships for a reason. I feel like that's life in general. So I totally agree with you. But a lot of people don't follow the breadcrumbs of intuition because logic comes in and they don't know that at the end of the day, you have to balance between your brain and your heart to really move forward when your intuition calls you to a certain place. So thank you for that. My next question is, you've mentioned the soul and spirit as distinct. How do you distinguish between the two, and what implications does this distinction have for personal growth?
Yeah, so soul is what's on the inside. It's this your passion, your creativity, anything that makes you you, whereas the spirit is something that emanates outward. So just because you love, let's just say, roses, you love roses so much, but if you never tell anybody about it, no one's going to know. And so I would even say that language is part of spirit, where it's the way that we express ourselves. Spirit is the way that it could be like an aura or like the energy. When you walk into a room, what happens, like that's spirit. So if you want to walk into a room and have all eyes be on you, your spirit would be responsible for that. And so that's why it's so crucial to develop the spirit and crucial to develop the soul. Because if you don't know your soul, then you won't know where to go. So, like, yes, intuition is great, but intuition is very spirit led. But if you don't know who you are, you won't be able to listen to your intuition, because sometimes intuition tells you to do really crazy things. Like, this makes no sense. Why would I listen to my intuition? And that's why I think a lot of people tune it out, because it's just so outlandish. But when you do actually do it, when you do actually trust and go for it, you realize that, okay, it did work out. Maybe I could try it again. And then you try it again, and get better with your intuition. But sorry, back to spirit and soul. It's important to work on both of them, but you can't work on both of them if you don't know them. So I think that's like one of my main things, is talking about the distinction between the soul and the spirit so that you can develop both of them. Spirit, again, like, it could be with talking, becoming a public speaker. It could be listening to your intuition more. Spirit is also with duty and knowing what jobs are yours and what jobs are somebody else's. Because either, this is what I've seen happen, either people aren't taking enough responsibility for their lives, so then the people around them have to pick up the slack, or they're taking on too much responsibility where other people don't even have a chance to pick up the slack. And so then they just cruise through life until one day they don't have it, and then they don't know what to do because somebody has always done it for them. So that's like a big part about spirit too.
Wow, I really love your distinctions. So, what I'm getting is that your spirit is kind of like the energy that emanates out of you. It's what people feel when you come into a room, and it's that impact that you have on people. Your soul is like your inner light that you tend to. Oh, I like that you use the word passion because it's kind of like feeding your light, pouring into yourself when you follow your passion, when you act on what lights you up. It makes I think of the soul as a sun inside of you. So by following what you're passionate about and expressing yourself in a way that is passionate,
Yeah.
right? Thank you. So like, but I love how you distinguish it because I wouldn't have seen it until I asked this question. So thank you. Now, still talking about self awareness, but with astrology in mind, many are intrigued by astrology but wonder about its foundations. From your perspective, what makes astrology effective and how can it serve as a tool for self awareness?
Yeah, so looking at the history of astrology, it started because people wanted to know when to plant. They wanted to have food, you know? So they looked at the stars, and when when on Earth and you're living in a place where the weather is unpredictable, you look up at the stars and see, okay, like up there, these dots are going to be here every so often, like the cycles. And so what they did is they split everything up into 12 because the sky was so large. And they looked at, okay, when this group of stars are in this area, this is what is happening here on Earth. And so that's how we came up with the seasons. And from there, it was like I said, it was more for food and more part of the collective. Then once the Greeks took hold of it, it became more personal. And they started to notice that just like the world, the earth is a macrocosm, it's an individual. We are individuals and we have our own microcosm. And they applied the same principles to the self, and everything matched up. And so from then till now, we're looking at these different patterns and seeing how do these archetypes influence our personality, influence our decisions, influence how we relate to people, how we relate to different things. So each house of astrology is a different aspect of life. So I really use it in my research as a framework. So regardless of what people think it's true or it's not true, looking at it as a framework, it's the only structure that I have found that really touches on every single aspect of life. And that's why I've been using it as a personal map because, like I said, if you don't know something about yourself, then how can you fix it? How can you heal it? How can you work with it for your advantage? And by really studying astrology, I was able to not only figure myself out, figure out the people in my lives so that I could better understand them and support them. And now it's just something that I always go back to, and that's what the cool thing is too. I've been studying my own birth chart for over 5 years, and every day or every time that I go to look at it again, I always learn something new about myself. And so I think that's what makes it dynamic too, that there's always more to learn. You can always go deeper. You can always find more information from it.
Wow, thank you for that answer. And thank you for giving the foundations or and history of astrology because I do agree or I do remember that it did say that that's how astrology started. People are looking to the stars for answers. So thank you for linking that to the Greeks as well and then back to yourself because it's amazing astrology as a tool, what it can do for you in order to get to know yourself better. Like you spoke about houses, we haven't even spoken about planets and how each of that plus the signs kind of make up who we are as a person. So I'm very curious. You said you use astrology as a framework. Can you tell me much more about that?
Yeah, so looking back into the soul and spirit and stuff. So what I did is I created this chart where I like I said, I couldn't really separate them completely and say, okay, this is what the soul is, this is what the spirit is on a practical level. And so what I ended up having to do is look at the body of the soul, which is the heart. Or back to intuition, the intuition is the body of the spirit. And so it's like where the spirit connects with the body. And so our intuition, it's in our gut. And so from there, I was able to link up the astrological signs. So it starts with Aries, which is the body of the mind, and that is also ego. So that's the head, where you when we talk about trying to differentiate between the head and the heart, it's right there. It's Aries and Taurus. So we're saying that the body of the soul is heart or love, that's Taurus. And then it just goes all the way up. Then you could, like, for another example, you could say for like Scorpio, Scorpio is the soul of the body, and that's also linked to emotions. And so it's this whole chart. It's 4 by 4, so 16 different squares, and the 12 astrological signs line up along the outside of it. And so the only ones left on the inside are ones that aren't, I don't want to say natural, because obviously it's all part of us, but not natural in the physical sense, natural in the human sense. And so those four that don't aren't connected with an astrological sign are power, duty, awareness, and energy.
Wow, that's so impressive. Thank you for explaining that. So, is there a connection between planetary movement and the inner shifts we experience? How do you track or work that with that in your life outside of what you've said?
Yeah, so then so take back to the chart, taking it a step further. So that chart that I'm talking about, it was more to like understand how everything works, and then at the same time, just naturally, these business ideas were popping up into my head. And so one of them is Grounded Spirits, and I have a podcast for it. And with that, every day, so now there's four companies and then just like myself. So then I have like myself for Mondays, because it's Monday's moon. It's about your inner world, your own emotions, like really getting into that. And then on Mondays, I work with the moon. On Tuesdays, it's under Mars. And so I work with Mars, wherever Mars is on Tuesdays. And then, so each day I look at where is it and how can I work with it, with that energy.
That's really, really cool. And it's so impressive that you created this framework that is very detailed. I like that. How can someone use astrology practically, not just to understand
I'm trying to make
themselves?
it like very personal.
It's nice, it's good. So, how can someone use astrology practically, not just to understand themselves, but to evolve consciously?
To evolve consciously. So do you mean like understanding, like having more awareness of yourself?
Yes, of more than themselves, of the world. Like, you know how, as an astrologer, let's say there's a full moon or there's an eclipse, being able to be like predict what's happening in the world, being able to move beyond yourself into the collective energy using astrology. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I would look at Aquarius, because Aquarius is the like, people say that Aquariuses are removed, or they disassociate, but they have to disassociate in order to understand the collective. So
Hmm.
I think that every Aquarius has some understanding of the collective, more than themselves. But everybody has Aquarius in their chart, so it just depends on where you have it in your chart, and then that's how you can connect with the collective in that area. But Aquarius is also a humanitarian. It's also looking into academics and being really smart and being able to connect all these dots. And I think that anybody can do that. And so looking at polymathy, like I said, it's just looking at different subjects or different things that you're interested in. And polymaths are so impressive. So you could think of like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, Lewis Carroll, like these different people that are polymaths that liked or like studied these different things. They're able to draw better connections, and by drawing better connections, then that's how we're able to take it away from the individual and look at the collective, because the collective is just drawing dots. If you think of Pisces, Pisces is all about bringing everybody together. So the step before that, so Aquarius is known as the water bearer. It's carrying Pisces water of unity and bringing it out to the world. So Aquarius is all about connecting all of these different dots, and yeah.
That's a really good answer, specifying it to Aquarius, because what I know about Aquarius energy is that it's very detached, and people sometimes take that as aloofness or them not caring at all. Um, And the beauty of astrology is, like you said, where every sign, we just have them in different houses. So, for example, I have Aquarius in my fourth house and Pisces in my fifth house. If we're talking about collective, as an Aquarius with the fourth house placement, you're seen as the black sheep. You're seen as the person that is ahead of her time. So you may not necessarily be able to connect with people that you grew up in close proximity with. However, how I found that that shows itself or expresses itself is that Leo, the opposite sign, is in my 10th house of public status, reputation, and all of that. I found that my social skills tend to show themselves a lot more outside in public. That's that collective energy, bringing people together through a common interest. Myself starts to shine in that area. But with Pisces, you saying that that's what brings everybody together. What connects people to me, or what I've seen bring people together, is my work, because Pisces is in my fifth house of creativity. So when I express myself creatively and I create projects, I have people coming to support, family too, you know. So I see how different signs show themselves, and I see how you can use the placements of these signs to evolve beyond just yourself, to understand why society sees you a particular way, responds to you a particular way. Do you agree?
Definitely, definitely. So having Aquarius in the fourth house, you're right. Like it is considered like the black sheep, but by having that placement, you're also able to see the family dynamics while being disassociated. So seeing how everybody else works out, so that then you could offer advice. But the bad thing about Aquarius is that no one wants to listen to Aquarius because
So
they think
true.
that, well, you have everything figured out. But it's because I'm an Aquarius rising, so that's what keeps saying me. So by stepping out, you're able to see how everything works. And so, actually, going back to the whole inner world stuff, I think that's how it started because I'm an Aquarius rising. So, a rising sign is how your inner world is ruled. And so, I was able to see the inner world by detaching myself from it. And now I'm like getting back into it. But with your Pisces, your fifth house, what's so cool about that is that Leo rules the fifth house. So when you brought in Leo, it's that the Pisces is the water that's fueling the people to come. People, everyone's thirsty. Like, like plants can't grow without water.
So true.
So we need more people to bring in their Pisces energy. But the problem is that Pisces is also the sign of being in that victim mentality. Pisces is about sacrifice and really is being about being the victim. So we have to rise above that to allow people to come into our lives and to drink the water that we have. And then that goes into like the whole give and take thing. We could talk about with Virgo, the giver, and then Pisces taking, but Pisces is also about receiving, and Virgo is the giver.
I like how you put things together. First of all, you being an Aquarius rising is so spot on, because you being a polymath, doing a PhD, seeing things from different places, you are ahead of your time, for real. So that's something that shows in the way in the way you express yourself, that I could see. Also, it does make you a forward thinker and somebody that sees way beyond everyone else is seeing. That's why I totally understand when you said that they don't try to listen to you. They possibly think you're a know-it-all, you know. So I resonate with that. You said there's
Yeah.
something else, right? Exactly. I can tell. It's all right, because I feel like that's where I was going to with my fourth house, being that black sheep, right? Rather than being in the victim mentality of the Pisces sign, I use whatever, let's say, hidden resentment that I had about being a black sheep and not feeling like I fit in into the art. And ironically, that's what drew people in. Does that make sense? So I transmuted
Yeah.
the victim mentality exactly to art, because creativity is transmutation. So I love that
Hmm.
by learning astrology, I was able to really lean more into my fifth house, because I have a Pisces stellium. So I have like so many, I don't even know how many planets in Pisces in my fifth
Wow.
house. Yeah, so it does show up a lot. And I must say, because this was something that came up earlier when we spoke about Scorpio, I'm a Scorpio rising, and I have Jupiter in Scorpio as well. So in my first house, and Pluto in Scorpio in my first house. I must say, people treat me like I'm either a villain or somebody that they love obsessively. There's no in between. And the shadow that comes out from the sign of Scorpio in people can make people want to either fight it or allow it to transform them. So it's nice. All these things I'm saying are because these are the things, listeners, that make you up as a person when you consult your astrology chart. As you've heard, Laura has been studying her birth chart for like 5 years, and I'm sure the information you have about yourself is so detailed, so there's so much depth, there's so much that you know about yourself. But the beauty is that you're constantly evolving, right?
Exactly. And that's what I was going to bring up with people either loving you or not wanting to be with you, because people are scared of the transformation, and you have the transformation in your inner world. So you, just
Mm,
by being yourself, you're going to transform people's inner world. And some people don't want that, don't want the disruption. And I'm a Scorpio, have my Scorpio in the 10th house and midheaven. And so the same thing goes
nice.
with me. Like my work is what's going to transform people, but people sometimes don't want to be transformed. And then that's like where people don't want to listen.
I totally relate and I totally understand. And honestly, I'm not going to lie. It also teaches you, or it builds up your, I would like to say, soul in the case, in this case. Why? It makes you more self-validating. It makes you know that look at what I've done, look at who I am as a person. If you can't handle me based on the fact that being around me causes you to transform, you're not for me. But I also love that I said that your work transforms people, but sometimes people fight it because people are fighting with themselves. So if somebody
hmm
outside of them is being a mirror to what is going on inside of them that they haven't attended to, they most likely do push the person away or reject them and isolate them because they see them as bad. But it's because they don't want to tune into their inner world, and they don't want to use the, I would like to say, message transmitted from what you are putting out there as a way to receive and to use that to heal. So I've noticed that a lot.
Exactly. But that's what I
Yeah.
also love about astrology, is that sometimes we need the permission, because I think as kids, like I was saying in school, like it's about obedience, and like even like growing up with parents, like if you do something that the parent doesn't like, you're going to be put in a timeout. And so we've been feeling like we don't have permission, like, oh, like we're not allowed to do this, this, and this because I got punished for it as a kid. So I learned not to do that. But then now it's safe to do that as an adult. And sometimes we still need that permission. And looking at your chart, it says it right there. Like you have to, you already are these things. So it's okay to bring it out. So that's what I've also really loved about learning about the different parts of astrology. So like for instance, me with my Scorpio midheaven, it's okay to go into this spiritual world, this scary world, even though being an academic my whole life, being like really into like the physical world, it was so hard for me to come out as being a spiritualist or an astrologer, because I like didn't compute in my head to use this spirituality as a career. And everybody told me that I was crazy because I was a teacher before. I was a public school teacher in middle school, and everyone
Oh.
thought I was crazy to quit my job to pursue this spiritual nonsense, they would call it. But I'm
Hmm.
really glad that I stuck to it, and like now it's like all coming together.
And I'm really glad you stepped into it as well because honestly, it's just a beautiful journey what you've described about your life. You trusted yourself enough to embark on this journey. And I can tell just from what you're sharing with me that you really do make an impact on people. You really do have beauty and depth behind your words, and they touch people. So thank you for that. Now, my last couple of
Thank you.
questions. You're welcome. My last couple of questions. These questions are the last questions, and I like for people to like answer them in a concise manner just to make it fun. So it's like what comes to the top of your head, you say it, okay? So, no, last four questions actually.
Okay.
So, all right, are you ready? As a polymath, how do you dance between disciplines, astrology, psychology, spirituality, education, and keep it cohesive in your work?
I always loved everything. Like growing up, I love history, I love English, I love everything, art, everything. And so everybody always told me, like teachers, my mom, everybody, you have to pick one thing, you have to pick one thing. And I'm like, I can't pick one thing. I love everything. And so I think that's what's so cool about this chart now is that it brings in the disciplines so that I can do a little of everything and it's all very organized. So I can just bring it into my everyday life. And I'm really focused now on not doing, but being myself and allowing the work to flow out of me instead of forcing myself to do the work.
Beautiful answer. Thank you so much. And I must say, I do resonate with being somebody that likes everything and does everything. I've also been told we have to pick one thing, you do too many things, especially when it comes to creativity. I do resonate with what you said about people saying you do too many things. And in human design, I'm a manifesting generator. That's what I wanted to say. I'm a manifesting generator. And what they do
Me
is a lot
too.
of things. Really, exactly. I was about to ask. You just have so many things that you like to do, and it's not wrong. Your passion lights you up. You follow your passion, you follow your fire, you follow your gut. So that's why I resonate. I see you, and people may not understand, but you really get so much what's the right word? Peace, alignment, stability from doing those things. So thank you for sharing that.
Exactly.
Next question. What's one concept or practice from a completely different field that has deeply influenced your spiritual work?
I would say history. By studying history, like going deep into what happened 2000 years ago and what happened 20 years ago, I think that it's all so important to be able to move forward. So we can see, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, let's try something better. And if we don't study the history and actually look at these people as individuals, not as fairy tales, then we're able to move forward.
Beautiful answer. Honestly, and I do love history, so I totally can understand. But I find it clever of you to read history and then apply it to your current life, your present life, and what you do. So that's very impressive. My next question. Are there any upcoming projects or areas of research you're particularly excited about that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. So I am working on a whole ontology. And so looking at okay, let me start from the beginning. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I had to completely dump out all of my belief systems and really figure out, where does this belief system come from? Did it come from my parents? Did it come from school? Did it come from church? Did it come from friends? And I had to figure out what belief systems are mine. And by doing that, I was able to create a whole ontology. So it's like the why we believe the things that we believe and how basically the whole like solar system or like the universe works. And so I'm working on the book. Hopefully it's coming out at the end of the year, and bringing together all these different things to offer people a new way of thinking that is has a little of everything in it. It has religion in it, it has science in it, it has all these different parts where right now people see science and religion as so separated when they're actually very similar.
Wow, I'll definitely be on the lookout for your book. Congrats in advance. And I do love what it is that you're writing about, because there's so many questions that people have. And I feel like that book would answer those questions. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's
Last
kind of
question.
how I put it together, was looking at the different questions that people would have and then answering them like that. So it's going to have the question first so that people can figure it out for themselves before reading my answer. They can answer the question for themselves.
That's so nice. I'm glad that, I actually said that, because that's a really good way to write. It's kind of like you're giving people what it is they're looking for without having to go so far to get it, right?
And then it gives them an opportunity to self-reflect because their inner world or their belief systems could be different than mine. I'm not saying I have the perfect belief
Mm-hmm.
system in the whole world.
Yeah, I totally get that. My final question for you is, what book are you reading right now, and what's lighting you up about it?
Oh, my favorite book. Well, I'm reading it right now, but it's a reread. It's Carlos Castaneda's Tales of Power. But this is like
Hmm.
the fourth or fifth book out of his 12 book series. So I would definitely recommend to read the first one, The Teachings of Don Juan. And it's about him as a PhD student wanting to learn about anthropology, but then becoming a sorcerer's apprentice.
Oh my
And it's
goodness.
so cool to see him wrestle with his reason and the spirituality and feeling like he's in two worlds. Like I just really resonated with it. And what I do is I read the first book first, then I reread the first, then read the second. And then I just been doing that. So now I'm on the fifth one and I'm almost done with that to jump to the sixth one for the first time. And then the other one that I'm reading is about the LA River. And I live here in LA, and
Mm.
other rivers, people come to it, like the Colorado River, people are part of it and they flock to the river. Whereas here in LA, people don't even know about the river, like they don't see it. And so I'm really wanting to work with that. And so I've been doing a lot of research about the LA River.
All right. Thank you so much for all your answers. This was such a lovely interview. I've learned so much and I'm really going to sit down with the messages. I wish you a lovely day, Laura. Thank you for joining us on the podcast and we hope to see you again. Keep learning, keep doing you, keep changing people's lives, and good luck with your book release. We'll definitely look out for it as listeners and as me as the hostess. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viv. I had a great time.
Oh, I'm so glad. Bye.